Hi, Mr. Struthers Grape Forest. My name is Emily and I'm a flower farmer on Vancouver Island, BC. We respectfully acknowledge that Moonpetal Farm is located on Kwakwaka'wakw territory, specifically the traditional territory of Comox First Nation. I'm so excited to show you around the farm.
It's a rainy day today, as are so many here on Vancouver Island, but it's great weather for transplanting seedlings and transitioning tender seedlings from inside to the outdoors.
We're going to start our tour at the seedling shelf. This is where I sow all of my seeds and get young baby plants started. Going into the garage, one of the most important things is this thermostat. It controls the temperature and allows me to make it warm enough in here for baby seedlings to take off and establish themselves before I transplant them outside. Here you see the seeding shelf. It has everything a seed needs to turn into a plant. I thought we could start some sunflower seeds together. So if you want to try this at home, what you're going to need is a container with drainage holes in the bottom. You'll need some moist potting soil. Most potting soil you buy is dry, so make sure that you wet it first. When you squeeze it, it clumps up into a little ball like this and doesn't immediately fall apart, okay? And then of course your sunflower seeds. I'm going to fill my container with my moist potting soil. And I'm going to tap out the air pockets because roots don't like to travel through air. They don't travel through air, they like to grow through soil, and preferably moist soil. Because remember, your seedlings need light, water, and soil. And if those things aren't present, your seed probably won't be able to grow. So poke a hole in the soil about 2 centimeters deep. Unpack my sunflower seeds. If you're really curious, I highly recommend reading the seed package because on the back it should tell you everything you'll need to know for growing your seeds. These right here. Drop them into the little holes that I created. Cover them up. And I'm going to label Mr. Struthers class sunflowers. I'm going to take our container and put it on the seed shelf where it will sit on a heat mat under the light. The heat is going to speed up the germination process, and the light is here for when the seedlings poke out of the soil, they'll immediately get their food from the light. And down here, I'd like to show you some sunflowers that I sowed about 5 days ago. The seedlings are already popping out of the soil. They're getting all the food that they need from their soil through their roots, and then from the light above through their leaves. I check on my seedlings every day to make sure that the soil stays moist and that they're getting enough light. And when they get big enough, I'll start taking them outside. And now we're going to go outside and see where plants sit to get ready for the field. I want to draw your attention to these guys. These are sunflowers as well, and they're a little bigger and brighter. This is what yours are going to look like in a couple weeks. Those ones were started on April 12th, so it's been 2.5 weeks, and they'll be ready to go into the field in about a week and a half, as long as the weather is warm enough. I call this the hardening off station. Hardening off is the process where plants that were started inside spend a little bit of time outside, and over the period of a week or so, we increase the time they spend outside until they come onto these shelves and they spend 5 or 6 days, day and night outside, and then we take them to the field. We're on our way back to the field. It's my favorite part of the farm. It's where I spend most of my time, and it's where the plants that we started in the garage turn into flowers. These are the flower fields of Moonpetal Farm. They also have everything a plant needs to grow, but on a slightly larger scale than the seedling shelf. When it's not raining, all of the water comes from this hydrant that's attached to the irrigation tubes, and those run all along the flower beds. We talked about how the flowers get their water through the irrigation.
They get their light from the sun. And then there's the last ingredient, which is the soil. And we maintain our soil health on the farm here by adding compost every time we plant something. And I want to tell you about this black fabric that's on a few of the beds. It's called landscape fabric, and we use it for weed suppression. What that means is it covers the soil, which stops weeds from popping up and taking over, because the last thing that our little flower plants need is competition for nutrients. And we manage that by stopping the weeds from getting sunlight. This spring we had a heat wave about a week ago, middle of April, which is uncharacteristic for Vancouver Island this time of year, but it happened, and so most of my spring bulbs that I planted in the fall last year bloomed last week. I'll show you what's left of those. These are some late blooming tulips that still haven't quite ripened, but I do see one that's ready for harvest right here. I will probably dig that up and take it to our cold storage. Here we have some anemones and ranunculus. That one's a pink one, and there's a white one. Here is a brand new anemone bud that's about 2 or 3 days away from opening up. Nothing can ever change the way I feel. For flower farmers, when we harvest our tulips, we leave the bulb attached, because that will keep feeding the flower while we keep it in our storage. Bring it over to the root cellar, which is where it stays cool. I can typically store a tulip in here for up to 2 weeks before it's time to send it off to a customer. A big part of being a farmer is obviously growing things, but the next biggest part is selling the things that you grow. For us on the Moonpetal farm, that means selling flowers. So what I like to do is I bring my flowers out a few times a week and I put together bouquets and arrangements. Okay, so that's the farm tour. I hope that gave you all a good idea of what it's like to be a flower farmer, or even a good idea of how to grow plants from seed. The blonde one is Fletcher, and the white one is Kota. Can anyone guess what breed they are?